is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back to the Nafeesa Dangor Show. Very interesting talk with Aisha Sidat about divorce and the coping mechanisms and how to, of course, try and get by it. But now we're going through to a very interesting gentleman who's been making his mark in a different way. He's called Merjin Tinga. He's a trained biologist and passionate surfer. He has a 30K following on social media, and I'm going to tell you why. Because known as AKA the Plastic Soup Surfer, he's known for his extraordinary and impactful campaigns around plastic. Speaking about his extraordinary plastic campaigns, he talks about, of course, using the vision of taking this, that, society is throwing away these plastics. It's creating issues there. And he's then turning these plastics into something. So definitely an NGO to speak to who's making a difference. A very good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, how are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, very fine, very fine. I'm in the Netherlands right now. I think I'm ahead 1 hour, or you're ahead 1 hour, I think. Yeah, and it's great to talk to you in Johannesburg, I believe. And,
yes, I was actually going to say welcome to South Africa, to our studios here in Johannesburg. It's such a pleasure and an honor having to have you on my show, talking about things that make a difference. Talk to us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Merjin Tinga. I run a small NGO which is called Plastic Soup Surfer, and what we do is we fight plastic pollution at the source. So we are confronting policymakers and politicians and companies, and we do this in a very special way by expeditions on surfboards made from plastic waste. And we also use several judicial instruments to target politicians and companies in the past. And in that way, we've had some quite good results here in the Netherlands. And also, we are talking to Brussels, Europe, the European Parliament, to see legislation changed over there. But there's one thing I'd like to say. When I was in my primary school, I actually lived in Lesotho, which is not that
really
far. Yes, I have. Yeah.
And what was your experience like there?
Yeah. Sorry.
Did you enjoy living in Maseru?
Oh, it was great. Well, it was from my 8th to my 12th. So I remember well, but I was still a child. But it was great. It was a great, beautiful country.
Wow. And then now all the way in the Netherlands.
Well, I'm from the Netherlands. My father was a developmental physician. How do you call this? A doctor. So that's why he was working in the Lesotho hospital, Maseru hospital, and then afterwards we returned back to the Netherlands.
It's so nice to see that you've started something that I think is so important, and I think a lot of the times people actually take it for granted. The streets are so dirty, people throw things all around, there's plastic in the oceans, it's damaging the environment as such, and you found a really nice way of turning it around and making out of it. And I think that's what's important, because the thing is it's recycling it into something really usable.
Exactly. The thing is, of course, plastics are ubiquitous. They're everywhere, and we've grown very used to this. It's like a fish in the ocean. The fish doesn't even see that he's in the water anymore, and that water to us is like plastic to us. And the thing, of course, is plastics is indestructible. So for the ecosystem, once plastic is in the environment, it does not break down biologically anymore. It just crumbles. It breaks up into smaller pieces, and this way it accumulates in our environment. And as we are sitting here, we have this plastic. Actually, we have research that we find microplastic, very small particles of plastics in the placenta of pregnant women. So, and as we know, we are actually inhaling the plastic, and we find the additives which are added to plastics to make it more
Whoa.
flexible, for instance, or to make sure it doesn't flame retardant, stuff like that. We find that in our bloodstreams. Any one of us, at least here in Europe, if you take a sample of our blood, of our urine, you will find these additives which are in our blood, and they are hormone deregulatory, which means, of course, they actually have an impact on what's going on in our body. So, of course, we don't know enough yet what the impacts is to our own health, but we already know that, like, it will most probably cause all sorts of chronic diseases and inflammation. And
Most definitely. And
as
I
we
think
go
it's very
on,
concerning. It's concerning
it
because
is
at the end of the day, we actually not realizing the impact it's having on our lives.
exactly. It's like a fine particle dust which you're breathing in. We've grown used. I mean, um, uh, we are growing to use. We are growing used to this, to having this, using this plastic all the time, and we don't yet recognize that it is actually having a harmful effect on our health, and not only us, of course, but on the whole environment and aquatic life as well.
Yes. Um, it's nice to see that you've created this in 2017. You've created this political breakthrough on bottle deposits, and I think that's important because a lot of the times, and I think I've started this habit myself here in South Africa because we have these reclaimers and recyclers that collect these bottles actually for a living. So I've actually having to pack it separately so that they don't have to scrummage in the waste bins. And then they take that to the recycling plants. So likewise, it's so nice to see that you've incepted that project because I think that is important for people to understand the type of impacts this is having, not just on the environment, but on us as human beings as well. So on the entire earth as such.
Exactly. And in the case of bottle deposits, for instance, oh, there's somebody ringing the door. In the case of bottle deposits,
That I am working online, so it's been a bit of a mission here due to the COVID-19. So just please excuse that. I think that was
I
that,
have,
that
I
was
have,
my side to say that we need to start recycling here in South Africa a lot more than we are already.
yeah, yeah. So what I feel is at this moment, and this has been a strategy for many decades of the plastic producing companies,
Mm,
is to when they sell us all these products, is to tell us that we, the consumers, are responsible at the end for the littering when there might not be sufficient or waste management systems to pick everything up. They're
mm.
not taking responsibility themselves, and that's what bottle deposits do. They make sure that these companies are obliged to take back their bottles and make sure that what they put out on the market, they collect it as well. You have all these recycling targets, which is great, and these companies should work on that, make sure their packaging is recycled. But you should, but the steps before recycling are sorting, and before sorting, you have collection. So before you can start recycling, you should make sure that everything you put out on the market, you should take back. But let me tell you, I'd like to tell you an anecdote. Um,
Yeah,
so
sure.
the way we got that the way we got that political breakthrough was I built a board from plastic bottles, and I surfed that from. So I built this board, and then I surfed this board from the Netherlands to Great Britain. So there's the North Sea in between, which is about 180 kilometers. I don't know how far. I was thinking, is there an island out of South Africa which is similar distance? I don't know. Robben Island. How far is that? That's not that far, I guess.
Eh? How many kilometers did you surf?
180 kilometers to get across to. So
Yeah,
this was
you
a
could
record
probably
attempt
do
on
that
a
in
board.
Cape Town.
Yeah. So this was a record attempt on a surfboard, which attracted a lot of attention, and I surfed that across. But the goal was to have people sign my petition, a petition which asked people for bottle deposits on, or the politicians for bottle deposits on small plastic bottles in the Netherlands, which we didn't have. And with those, I got 55,000 signatures, and with those signatures, I went to Parliament. And I was there, when I was there in Parliament, and this was Valentine's Day, so I didn't take 55,000 signatures with me, but I took 50,000 sugar hearts. And with those 50,000 sugar hearts,
that was a very creative way.
Yeah, well, you need to, well, I mean, it's very easy to become depressed and demotivated when you're tackling huge problems like this, environmental problems. So I always tend to sort of try and keep it fun and light. So I took these 55,000 sugar hearts, but I also written my own resolution. And that resolution said, we want 90% less littered bottles in the Netherlands. And all these politicians signed my resolution, which actually meant the deposit return, and it was adopted 2 days later in Dutch Parliament. And that is why and that was the political breakthrough. And now we will have bottle deposits on small plastic bottles this year, this summer. It will be implemented. So that was, that was a great.
I think it was phenomenal, and it was probably those sugar hearts that did the trick.
Yeah, well. Yeah, I guess so. You need to have follow your passion, I'd say. Follow your passion and make it fun. Otherwise, you demotivate. You get depressed when you're talking about huge problems like this and trying to make a difference in these problems. And I would say,
let's talk about your.
Well, it would be great if there would.
Yes, you were saying in South Africa.
Yeah, well, I would feel I've been to Kenya, for instance. I've spoken to the environmental state secretary, environmental. And of course, you might know that in Kenya, they have one of the toughest plastic bag bans and plastic bans, single-use plastic bans in the world. And they were considering deposits on plastic bottles in Kenya back then. And that's why I was there. But I'd say that is something that should be considered in South Africa as well.
Most definitely. I think you need to come down here to South Africa and do the campaign the same one that you did. And you can probably swim to Robben Island. And then that might make some form of an impact, and people will start taking us seriously about having to get rid of this issue that's killing our oceans and our fish and the environment as such.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think a lot of the times we get so caught up in what we do that we don't realize what is actually happening around us. And I think you've brought important facts to the fore. I mean, especially, for example, we just got over the festive season, and then the fireworks scenario was happening, and driving around, although we were under lockdown, people were doing it from their homes. But the type of litter that was created was not all that great. And that is why I'm saying you've come up with these concepts to actually, try and make people create that awareness of what is going on around them in the environment and make them understand what sort of impact it's having on us as human beings as such.
Exactly. And what you're seeing is that we are using these plastics for all different types of products by now. And you just mentioned fireworks. So what we did for fireworks, for instance, we asked our community to use our app, the Plastic Avengers app. We used the community to make photographs with that app. And in that way, they made 60,000 photographs of just plastic litter, which remained after these fireworks have been used. When, of course, there is a perfect, sustainable, and as far as you can call fireworks sustainable, of course, but there is a sustainable alternative, which is just paper. And if you think about fireworks are older, much older than any plastic. So there is this alternative, and we should use that. So with those 60,000 photographs, we went to these companies and we had all these companies sign a resolution in which they promised to phase out plastic their from their fireworks. And most noteworthy is in the Netherlands, we don't produce any fireworks. We actually just order it from China. So it's rather a small step for a company just to start ordering something else, something different than that plastic. And with that resolution, that Dutch resolution, which was signed by the entire retail, they took out all that plastic from all those plastic containing fireworks from their shelves. And with that resolution, we went to Brussels. And at the moment, as we stand here, within a few weeks, our resolution will be voted on. So with a little luck, we'll actually have
Wow.
that phase out of plastics in the entire of all the member states, European member states. Yeah, yeah.
So it's great to see that it's like,
Yeah. So
you're expanding on it. And it's not something that you intend just doing in one sphere, but going throughout different countries and making people aware of the types of impacts we have from our litter. And also, of course, empowering people. In South Africa, what happens is, and I don't know if you're aware of this, is we have people that are called reclaimers. They take all the they collect all the recycling in the streets, and then take it to the recycling plants as such, where of course they get paid for that plastic that they're taking in. So in that sense, we're trying to help out. Where we're trying to empower these people, because as you know, they come from some of them, a lot of them come from impoverished backgrounds and they're unemployed. But that's some way of actually empowering them, but at the same time trying to save the environment.
yeah, which is, I mean, very true. We need to make sure that plastic has a value. And what you see is these reclaimers, they are actually picking up those plastics that do have a value. So that's PET bottles and polyethylene containers. I don't know if they do polyethylene containers, but I think they will probably, because that's still has certain value. But what you see, of course, there's a whole lot of plastics being put out on the market that has no value at all. They are single use plastics, and they're called single use plastics because they're just, they're made, they're designed to throw out straight after use. And those plastics are worthless, and it's those plastics that we find that end up on landfills, blown from landfills, which actually are polluting our oceans. And what you
Right.
see is the companies and are are pushing for you to buy as much as possible, of course, and they're not thinking about how to get those plastics back. So I think the big change we need is these companies, like, for instance, when we're talking about plastic bottles or these polyethylene containers, they need to make sure that they are collected afterwards. Only recycling is not enough. We need that collection, and that collection should be the company should be responsible for that collection in the first place.
Yeah. Marianne, talk to me about your partnership with online retailers, around the promotion of repair. I think it's a good campaign and partnership. Give us a little bit more insight into that.
Yeah. So what I'm doing actually is we have a few large online retailers which I got in contact with, and like I said, my my vision is that we should move away from this single-use society, from this throwaway culture. And one of
Mm.
if you know this, one of the key points, of course, is that if you have reduce, reuse, recycle, you probably know that sum up, that repair. Um, we
Hmm.
are very much used. We are very much used to just buying everything new once it's broken. So what I'm trying to do with these online retailers is make sure that once they offer any product, if they offer these products on their site, that they make sure that they tell you if it well, that they give the information on how you can repair it as well. That maybe there's another product that will last longer because you don't have to repair it, or you can repair it. Maybe put the spare parts on there as well, that you can click on the spare parts. You can see the YouTube do-it-yourself repair video, or maybe even do a lease construction or something like that. But in any way, make sure that you facilitate that consumers can choose repair as an option, and become conscious of that option and use that in their decision making, opposed to the way it is now, where you just, once it's broken, you just throw it out and you buy a new one, which of course is not sustainable in any way, and which does not have any incentives for producers to make sure that their products are repairable, or that you can use them afterwards, because there is no incentives, because people just want to buy a new one, and because it's quicker and easier.
Now, so I understand fully what you're saying. I
So
mean, because the thing is, now we're sitting with something that's broken, and how do you get rid of it? It's just going onto the landfill sites and standing there and creating more pollution than there was before. But one thing I found interesting was your name. How did you come up with this? The plastic soup surfer.
the plastic soup surfer, yeah, I have it here. Yeah, the plastic soup surfer, yeah. So I'm actually I'm a biologist who turned into a visual artist. And at a certain point, I was surfing a lot, and I was stumbling across this plastic trash washed up on our Dutch beaches. And they call the great garbage patch which you have floating in the oceans. They also call that the plastic soup. So that's like,
Okay.
yeah, that they call that the plastic soup. So I thought, well, if I build this board from this washed up trash, I'm actually surfing on plastic soup. So that's how I came up with the name Plastic Soup Surfer. So I took that trash from the beach, and I just took my battering rod
I,
and
I find it very
the
interesting.
gas torch, and I just pressed that into a board, and I used that for a record attempt, and that was like the birth of the plastic soup surfer. After that, I've done a whole lot of other campaigns, like the one I just told you about, surfing to England on a board made from
Have
plastic.
you created those boards for anybody else besides yourself?
Well, the first one I built entirely by myself. The second one, which I served to England, I had help from a board shaper, so who was more apt in building this board. Also, it had to be much more durable, because we were actually surfing it across 180 kilometers. So, I mean, it shouldn't break halfway or something. We'd be causing plastic pollution.
Yeah,
So it
definitely
became
not.
a bit more, not the good message. And after that, I actually had a board made from, again, from plastic bottles, which was a stand-up paddle board, and I paddled that for 1,000 kilometers down the River Rhine. The River Rhine, of course, one of the largest
Wow.
rivers in Europe, a very iconic river from source to sea. So what I did was I I went to the source of the Rhine, and you can understand the water is crystal clear. And high up in the Alps, it's all this melting water, and it's crystal clear and very, very cold. And I drank that just as an image, as a photograph, as a photo op. Just drank that for the camera shot, and then I paddled down the
Wow.
Rhine on this board made from plastic bottles, and then when I was at the sea, when I was at the mouth, the river mouth of the River Rhine, of course, I took that same glass and I picked it up again, and of course it was brownish, sandy water, because of it is the North Sea, of course, but also it was very symbolic for the idea that all this plastic I had passed on the way down this river was in that glass as well. The river, of course, had been polluted as it streams as it flows towards the North Sea. And then after that, so that was very symbolic. And after that, we went back upstream with the plastic I had collected in the river. I went back upstream to the companies which I felt are the source. You are the source of putting this out on the market. So I had bailiffs and a judicial instrument, and I went up to these companies and I confronted them with this litter, and I made them aware. No, that's not what I was. Sorry, can't find the word. I made them implicitly. No, can't find a word.
Aware of the situation and what is happening around them.
And it was. Sorry.
Wow. But I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. I want to commend you on the work that you're doing thus far, because I think a lot of people actually tend to do, pun on other things and not realize how important the environment is for us as human beings, because it's the place we stay in. It's our earth, and that we really do have to look after our earth if we want a better quality of life. So I want to commend you on that. It's absolutely amazing to see that you're going out there, and we're hoping to see you in South Africa really soon, so that you can bring some attention to that as well, to our environmental affairs. But we want to thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. What message would you like to leave us with?
That's a good one. For the people in South Africa, well, the first thing is, of course, reduce, try and reduce. Be aware of the amount of plastic you use. Be aware of all the single-use plastics you use, and try to reduce that.
And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, all the way from the Netherlands. I'm really honored that you took the time out to join us all the way down here in South Africa. Thank you so much. We wish you nothing but the best with your future projects and your campaigns, and we hope to get in touch with you in the near future. So you take care of yourself and do stay safe. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much. And if you want to know more about the Plastic Soup Surfer, go to Instagram, Plastic Soup Surfer. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is Merjin Tinga, definitely informing us about how to look after the environment and the types of effects that it's having, and the differences that he's been making. And I think it's so phenomenal to see the types of campaigns that he started going to be able to make those differences. And I think it's something that we take for granted. So go and have a look at his Instagram site. He has something like 30,000 followers, which is a lot. So go back to that site and have a look at it. It's called plasticsoupsurfer.org. Stay with us. We're going to go for a break, and then we're going to have our author on after that.